Worked with companies like Google as well as rap star Jay-Z. His studio's latest headquarters project has set standards for workplace strategies and interior design, generating huge commercial benefits blended with great look and feel. So please welcome Lee to the stage.
Thanks, Cindy. Very much. Thanks for inviting me here this afternoon. It's lovely to see you all. It's great to be in New York. Lovely weather here. It's a bit warmer than the UK and Europe, I must say. I left a very rainy, grey day and landed in sunny New York, so it's great to be here. I wanted to come along today to just sort of run through a bit of an all-rounded approach as to how the current thinking is happening in London and in Europe. And basically, we work on the basis of getting deep under the skin of our clients. We look at headquarters and offices as being places for human beings. We take an all-rounded view in terms of the business, in terms of problems with share values, through to talking to the cleaners and talking to the CEOs. We get to know them as people. And this sort of all-rounded approach generates a self-perpetuating headquarters building, which has obviously great look and feels, great place to work, and obviously has huge commercial values, which are starting to sort of set some new relaxed standards. Obviously, it's about people, and looking at how life is in general in Europe. There's more stress, and it's all facets of life. In terms of getting a mortgage, that's pretty tough to do these days. Getting a basic bank loan is pretty hard work, and there's generally high levels of competition at work and in life personally. Obviously, that mixed with spending time with your family becomes harder, so we mustn't forget what it's all about in terms of quality of time with your family and those that you like to be with. There's obviously more social pressures. Life in general is faster. Social media is obviously sort of compound that situation. And having relationships that sort of are stemming from that social media obviously has an impact of the way that we work at the office, and things are more instant, global, and if you cock something up, everybody knows about it instantly. So that tends to sort of put a little bit more pressure on you than maybe we used to have in years gone by. The ethos that the job used to be for life has gone. So all of these things generally amount to the sort of bottom line that headquarters have to sort of compete against one another a little bit more. There's lots of conversations that happen in wine bars and pubs at the end of each working week. People talking about the place that they work compared to their mate's place that they work. So there's more competition that goes on around these types of things. Buildings need to flex around us as opposed to us flexing to the buildings, and it's absolutely incredible how the majority of buildings in Europe still force people to work around them and not the other way around. And that's one thing which is really coming through as something that generates a massive devaluation commercially in the way that people work and the way that buildings work. Basically, having to sort of start a new generation and a new breed of headquarters to sort of spin this back around on itself is the key drive that we have in Europe at the second. And it opens up all sorts of kind of interesting opportunities and relaxations and kind of like, turning things upside down in terms of how we actually can work. And it's very, very important to look at those values as we go forward with this new breed of headquarters. They've got to be commercial bits of kit. So this iPad that I'm holding here, it's a trendy thing, it's cool, it's got lots of sort of apps on it, it's very clever in the way that it works, very, very well thought through, very, very well honed. And instead of looking at a headquarters building as being a building, which is a place that's mundane, that we have to go to sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we should be talking about our headquarters in a bar on a Friday evening as a piece of kit. I've got a core headquarters building, it does this, it does this thing differently, it's got this sort of gizmo towards making my life easier. So it should be something I'm happy to boast about. And again, that's something that doesn't come through very much in terms of the majority of buildings that we have in Europe at the second. So we've really got to sort of start to think about them as an object with a brand of their own, and something that we think is cool, and something that we think is something to be proud of. variety is the spice of life. It's amazing how we go to our wine bar and we pick and choose which one we go to. You fancy a Chinese one evening, you fancy an Indian another evening. You know, there's a multilingual kind of opportunity to go and choose what we want to go and eat and drink when we want to go and socialise and have our fun time. It seems to be accepted to be the opposite way when we go to work, in that we have to go and sit at the same desk, it's the same height, it's got a uniform type of chair, which doesn't necessarily sort of suit your ailments that you have. We all have different ailments, we all have different shapes and sizes and personalities, but somehow we all have to sit in the same desk in the same chair, and somehow that's meant to be okay. So we've been pushing forward with ways to sort of really question that and turn that again upside down and look at that differently. And as I come round in full circle with this little presentation, you'll see how loosening that up and having more variety will be more fun, but it's actually really, truly more commercial to quite an extensive degree. So that's something that I think we should all start thinking about, and that's certainly something we've been pushing forward with our new headquarters schemes that we've been delivering quite recently. Basically, the headquarters should have a number of breakout sort of activities to it. So a lot of forward-thinking companies that think they're pretty out there have breakout areas in a desking area. Well, that's great, but basically we should be looking at other activities, having dry cleaners, getting spaces to get your bikes fixed, and all sorts of things like cash machines, and almost mini high streets within headquarters to sort of give you a bit of a break through the day, as you need to do some chores and conveniences and things like that. So these buildings should be helping us with our life and sort of not holding them back a little bit. Health rules. It's amazing how headquarters buildings tend to kind of have a reputation of, boxing us into some bad habits and repetitive sort of syndromes and things like that. So work shouldn't do that to us. So the big push in Europe at the moment, thanks to sort of good friend of mine, Jamie Oliver, who's been pushing forwards with his sort of vegetable garden and things like that. We should really be looking at how the headquarters actually enhances our health as we work, as opposed to sort of hindering that. And it's amazing how there's a massive drive with the sustainability of buildings, and we quite often see contractors pitching to us to do projects, and they're banging on about how they're good at LEED and they're good at BREEAM and things like that. To me, that's a given. We should all be doing that as a matter of course, and it should be in the small print as a provision. But it's amazing how many organisations actually forget how the health of the people that work in their organisations isn't really focused upon. So less focus on the buildings in terms of their design and sustainability, much more focus in terms of the health of the people that actually work in the headquarters. And that itself brings out a lot of retention in terms of recruitment, and it gives people a lot more resolve in terms of having a better quality of life when they're working. Fresh food. So back to my old chum, Jamie Oliver. Landscaping at two headquarters that we've just delivered. It's not just a tree, it's not just a shrub or a bush, just for the sake of it. It's actually a landscaping which produces fruit and produce that you can actually eat. So at lunchtime, if you want to go and sort of cut some fresh herbs or pick a fresh apple, or something that's sort of native to England, because obviously the headquarters is in London, you can do that, and you can make your life a little bit more tasty, a bit healthier. It breaks up your day, it's giving you an activity to use. So it's an inherent way of sort of spicing up and sprucing up the look of a headquarters with stuff that you can actually grow yourself and have your 5 a day and eat it and make your lunch a little bit more sort of fruity. Allotments. We developed a scheme for Google, again, where we sort of had space left over in a building, and we needed something to fill that up, so we just threw the word allotments onto the plans, and Google said, well, we love the rest of it, but we really want to know what the allotments are, and we didn't have a clue what they were. So we came up with a scheme, which we'll show you a visual of in a second, where you basically have your allotment assigned to you. There's a waiting list. If the rules are as they are in London, if you don't maintain your allotment properly, you get chucked off, and then the next person can come through. And this kind of thing has proved to be absolutely amazingly popular. And with 300 allotments, we've got a 3-year waiting list at London. So People like this kind of thing, and that's the bottom line of going back to the beginning, where we talk to people, get under their skins, find out what they want at work, find out what makes their life more efficient and enjoyable, and these kinds of things work really, really, really well. Give the food free of charge. You know, fresh produce, fresh water. We all know that water improves performance in people. Dish it out free because it's not expensive. It costs 12 pence for a bottle of water. Stick that in the fridge, give it to people free of charge. They feel like they're having a contribution from the company and they're more healthy for it. Things like this, in terms of the operation and the facilities of headquarters, are important to bear in mind. Look and feel is 10% of what we should be doing. People sort of get bogged down by sort of trying to generate, you know, good looks in headquarters, but effectively 90% of what we should be doing is about true functionality. You know, we should be looking at the operationals, we should be looking at the leaseback situations, the real estate issues, you know, the core facilities managers that have to run these buildings. You have to look at a long list of operational issues and legalities and things like that to make this stick. And you know, this theory of having a headquarters which is great for your quality of life would be absolutely pointless unless we basically did something which worked and functioned properly and improved the lives of the people that have to run and own these buildings. So in an all-rounded, balanced sort of solution, these are the things that we have to look at very carefully in order for these things to happen. There's no gimmicks here. Gimmicks would date quickly, they'd disappear, they wouldn't be justified through the system of sort of taking something from a conceptual scheme through to delivery. So these things have to be nailed right from the beginning to make these things actually work and operate properly. Base build designs in Europe is stuck in the mud a little bit, and that's something that we've proven through some other recent schemes with companies like Hiscox Insurance and so forth. And I'll sort of make a little bit more sense of this when I wrap up in terms of this Google case study that we've got. But effectively, you know, people aren't looking at riser provision properly. They're not looking at compartmentation. You know, there's still this sort of slightly lazy routine that, you know, we stack a floor above a floor and another floor, another floor, another floor, and then we look at the problems that sort of generates in terms of vertical solutions. So, you know, people rely too much on vertical staircases in shafts. You know, the time in the shaft is the dead time. So the new ethos of buildings that we're delivering and generating at the moment is all about losing the vertical shafts in the building, losing the compartmentation, making them much more social. And the project that we're designing for the second for Hiscox Insurance basically has a gross to net ratio of 93%, which is very, very, very high in terms of performance, in terms of square footage. It's doing that very easily, and it's only got one vertical shaft in the whole building, which is for the lifts. You can't quite make lifts go diagonally, so but everything else can. And this sort of generates the collaborative feel of the building. So as you move through the building, you move diagonally rather than vertically. It's not rocket